All right, I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to duplicate the subtool so that I've got an original. And I'm going to come back to this guy, and let's say that this, let me turn perspective on. Let's say this panel loop it's okay, it's cool, it's interesting, but let's take this as an example. I would really prefer this to be one piece. I'd really prefer this to be just one piece going straight down or across one piece. So if you want to do that, you have to get in here and start to unify these guys. It can be kind of annoying to unify them if you've got a lot of individual polygroups. So one trick I do is I'll just Control-Shift, and notice that I'm in Slice. So I'll press Control, and there we go. And now I can just Control-Shift, and there again I'm going to just press Control. Now I'll press Alt, Control-Shift, Control, press Alt. And that's getting kind of irritating. So I'm going to press Control-Shift and just switch back to the Select Rectangle. I'm going to say Polygroups, Group Visible. The extraction or the edge looping around here is irrelevant. Edge looping in this case is largely irrelevant. Clicking that one vertice, Control-Shift, click and drag, click, Control-Shift, click and drag, Group Visible. Okay, and I would really like that to be a different color, so I'll press that button again. All right, anything else that I want to unify? And maybe I would like to unify this circle. So that's one piece. And maybe I want to unify these guys. Group Visible. Okay. And now I'll come in Geometry, Panel Loop. Okay. And I've got a little bit more control. I'm going to try something else. And try something else. Okay. So I have a distinct advantage because Slice did put the geometry in. It did put this edge loop in there. I do have clean lines because that is what Slice did. Because of that, polish is less important. I don't really need that per se. I mean, I do get into a little bit of trouble here, but some of this, you see how the geometry is kind of interpenetrating itself? In some cases, that's solved with a divide. There'll be a little bit of funkiness, so that'll be a decision that you make. But not horrible. And I keep cleaner corners in places. All right. Now this is a case where it might be useful, depending on what we're doing, to have us regroup the panels. So let me undo. I'm going to turn regroup panels on, and I'm going to just pull that out. Now the cool thing about this is that if I wanted to extrude all of this out, the front that is, I would go move, click, and I could even go move, control click, and then I have a big block I can kind of pull out. Circuit boards, something of that nature, or if this is a piece or an alpha I need to extract, something like that. Now I don't want to lose these polygroups. Polygroups are really important, and the reason why they're important is because of features like deformation, polish by features. And what they mean is polish by creases, polish by polygroups, polish by various things, and they'll tell you right in here, creased edges or polygroups that will basically tell ZBrush, look, I've organized this as a separate part. I want you to kind of treat this with some love, so to speak. And you can see that, even with that panel loops at 0, or the polish in the panel loops was set to 0, this polish by features kind of takes care of everything for us. So you don't have to polish when you're creating that panel loop, that instrument panel. Okay, but in my particular thinking about this guy, the idea of panel loops or regarding regrouping panels, I keep calling it regarding, which is my dyslexia, just seeing the R-E-G. In this case, I actually don't want that. I want these separate pieces because now I can go to Brush, Auto Mask. I can set Mask by Polygroup at 100. And now I don't have to Control click. I just pull this piece out, pull that out, pressing Shift to push it in, pulling that way out, and I'm just clicking. Let me turn double on to see if I get into trouble. Okay, let me see what else we would want. Yeah, that, and that, and that. Really just crazy simple workflow. I'm clicking this middle dot and pressing Shift. That constrains it. Clicking on the dot just moves it out along the normal. All of that stuff. So now I've got a little bit more advanced of a setup here. Let me do these guys real quick. Let's pull those guys in. Okay. And we can pull that out. Okay. So with transpose and the new way that it works, where you're just control clicking on vertices and using mask by polygroup, I haven't got terribly complicated, but I'm able to create a lot more randomness to this whole process. So if I was to go in and say, divide this, everything starts to get softer. But that's not really what they're wanting you to do. They're actually wanting you to start with some decent geometry to begin with. And then you go in and you use things like polish by feature. So now this is a little bit more advanced of a panel, and we've managed to kind of get some nicer edges. Let's turn this into an open circle, polish by feature. And whoa, I don't even know what happened there. But see how everything's starting to get really simplified. So that in and of itself is a surface I would not have thought of. But now that you know this is possible, do you think it's a useful part of your sketching process? Now that you know that you don't have to create exactly what it's going to be in the beginning, then things start to change. Like you can go from here to there, and let's just kind of back this one up. And then let me turn polygroups on and back that up. Okay. So this workflow that I'm presenting to you right here with just something as simple as an instrument panel is really kind of significant and is core to what we know is Pixologic's core focus, which is freehand workflows, or as they'll call them, just artist workflows. And they want to expand that to everything. So they don't have extrude and a Maya gyro because that's what engineers built. The future, even if it takes several years for them to build it, the future is a totally different set of features. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's irrelevant. I love it when I hear people who are, let's say I'll hear like a 23-year-old, I'm mentioning the name for a reason, I'll hear a 23-year-old say, why doesn't ZBrush just use standard shortcuts? Or why don't they have a standard interface, is what people used to say before. And they forget that old school guys like me, I mean, I turned 40 this year. When I was 23, there was no standard interface. Photoshop was out, but nothing is standard. And the future is up to these guys who develop these features. It's their playing field. But the key thing is artist workflow and trying to find ways to get happy accidents and making that part of your workflow. Iterations and design focus. I'm just putting these words down because this is really important when you're teaching ZBrush. You want to make sure that people understand that the reason why ZBrush is different is because they are design focused. If they were a production tool, then they would definitely have what people would call standard interfaces, because you have very specific production requirements. But their design tool, it's freehand stuff, and they're looking for ways that you can do and find new designs real quick. And we're getting there. All right, let me take a look at questions real quick, and then we're going to move on to the next section.